I gotta move this thing out of the way so I can see. Sam Bunting, sir, you have exactly 10 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have a minute left. Yes, sir. We won't count it until you get going.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, to Council. Good to see you all again. I'm here on behalf of Prominent Homes and our customer that owns the property, Terry Lynn Moore. We're here to propose a boundary adjustment to a hamlet limit. This property is located in Villanova. The property is the southwest corner of Villanova, just below Thompson Road and to the left of Villanova Road. What we are asking or proposing is that some of the land within the hamlet limit is undevelopable. And what we are asking Council to direct planning staff. We've had many talks with planning staff, and it seems planning staff has been very set on we cannot touch anything outside of the hamlet limit, and we've kind of gone at this a couple times, and they've been really strict with this. And one of my issues is Norfolk County just did an official plan review of all the lands within Norfolk County, even the hamlet limits, and they've calculated all this land and said we have so much land to build on over the next 5 to 6 years, and there's a portion of land marked out in this blue hatching on my sketch here that is undevelopable, but Norfolk County still counts this as a part of developable land according to the official plan review. So this area hatched in blue represents 12,045 square meters in area. What we are proposing to Council is that we move this area to the hatching in red. The hatching in red represents 7,537 square meters. What this does is this gives us the ability to not just do what we were told by the planning department was we could only do 3 lots, and they have to be 1 acre of size in order to put a septic bed on each lot. And now that we're limited to the hamlet limit, the lots are very wide because the depth isn't there. What this does by us moving the property over is allows us to put a little bit deeper lot, more room for septic beds, and it also allows us to possibly put 3 more properties onto this area. Now, the fact was pointed out that residential does not bring income to Norfolk County. These roads are already installed. Villanova does not have any services when it comes to septic, sewage, or water. So these properties will have a septic bed, their own sewage treatment. They will have a well or cistern. So there's really not a lot of cost to Norfolk County. Currently, the owner pays less than $800 in land taxes for this property. So, you know, we could put on 3 homes at $3,000, $4,000. You're looking at $9,000 to $12,000 revenue. If we put in 6, you're looking at double that. You're looking at $18,000 to $24,000 in continuous revenue over the future. So again, what we're proposing is let's take the area within the boundary that's undevelopable, let's put it on a road that is developable, and let's put a few nice homes up in here and get some revenue and some nice homes that are close to Brantford where people want to live in Norfolk County away from Brantford and then commute to Brantford for their jobs. That's that seems to be all I have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Bunting. What makes those lands in blue undevelopable?
Okay, because of the nature of the positioning, there is a property where the old general store used to be. You can see the number 1398. That property stretches the entire distance. Now, there also is a little blue line that represents a stream, so there is hazard land in that area as well. But behind the General Mills store, it's only 150 feet. So if we were to, say, put a road in, and we could only fit 1 or 2 lots back there, and the road would be more expensive than what we could even sell the lots for. We just couldn't do anything with it. It's just unfeasible to build on it.
Thank you for that. Now, in our official plan review, they talked that they don't want linear development anymore, so you would have spots here. Could you not put a road through, say, from the Villanova Road over to Thompson Road East and make a bigger block for that hamlet?
There was, I did a potential plan, yes, and I did a road off of Villanova that did have a cul-de-sac on this particular property that had about 20 lots that we were proposing at first. But then when we went to planning, it just never happened because we cannot go with outside of the hamlet limit. But yes, there could be a potential development here of 15 lots in the future. So what we actually planned on doing was leaving an entrance off Villanova in the middle so that the farmland could still be accessed behind these lots for the farmer. And then in the future, if the land were to be developed, that would become a road, and then there would be lots in behind these homes here.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, where the store was,
Yes.
would the owner be open to putting a road through so you could basically make a road from here over?
I don't know if that owner would. I don't know if I would put a road off that road. Thompson Road is much more traffic heavy. What we had proposed was just a road off Villanova with a cul-de-sac, just a circular roundabout, so that people could drive in and drive out and keeps traffic to a minimum. And there also is some grading concerns coming off Thompson Road. There is quite a big ditch in that area too, so it would be a little bit more difficult to put a road in off Thompson in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Further from anyone? I don't see anybody else, so I guess thank you very much.
Thank you.
I need someone to move the deputation as information. Councillor Columbus, all those in favor? That is carried. What's council's wishes? Anything further that they want to bring forward? Councillor Black.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question of staff?
Go ahead.
Through you to planning staff. What does our official plan, our zoning have to say about this? What does the PPS have to say, and what does the growth strategy have to say?
Through Mr. Chair, there's a lot of questions there. I'll try to remember them as I go through. I think I've forgotten the first one already.
Councillor Black, can you put them all three together?
Well, basically, our planning. What does planning have to say about this? Is it allowed? Is it allowed under the policy of the provincial policy statement? Our growth strategy says that we don't need any more growth. We have enough, and therefore the boundaries are set. So how can we change the boundaries if, under those constrictions? Our own policies.
You're answering your own question.
Well,
if I may begin through the chair, the provincial policy statement basically expansion of settlements has to be based on need for residential. In the case of hamlets, need for residential development. The analysis that we did, or I did through the official plan review, was looked at the potential need for housing in Norfolk County in the hamlet area, And I looked at two numbers. One was the allocation of growth done through the Hampton population forecast, which was done for the development charges study, the integrated sustainable master plan, and also used for the official plan review. And that report identified a need of about 200 and, I'm going by memory, I think roughly about 275 units in the hamlet areas over the next 20 years. I did an alternative forecast based on more recent development statistics, experience in Norfolk County, and came up with an alternative forecast which I think was identified a projection of about 800 new units in hamlets over the next 20 years, so considerably more potential growth. I then analyzed that potential growth with the supply in the 42 hamlets. And I did that by going through each hamlet, mapping, with help from the GIS mapping, on a lot-by-lot basis, took into account lands that were not developable, which would include hazard lands, provincially significant wetlands, also lands that were undersized. I was guided by the zoning bylaw, which a lot in the hamlet has to be 1 acre in size or 0.4 hectares. So that's what I went with. And the conclusion I came up with, just look for it in the report, was that there's still the surplus, even if I go with the higher forecast, the surplus over the 20-year period of 277 lots in the county. And that's going at almost 800 new units in hamlets over the next 20 years. And so there's sufficient supply overall, and based on the provincial policy statement, there isn't a demonstration of need to justify expansion of hamlet boundaries.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate that, but I think Mr. Bunting is actually asking something similar to what we did before, this sort of idea of a lot swap. And is it possible to change the boundaries of the hamlets and exclude a certain area from the existing hamlet boundary and include that same amount, developable amount, attached to it elsewhere, as he's kind of indicated here in his map? Is that a possibility?
Through the chair, I just want to indicate that if you're looking at the map that was provided for this deputation tonight, the area from the building, the store, the gas station, to the west or to the left side of the page, although within the hamlet boundary, it was not counted as part of the developable land because it's hazard land. So just so you're aware that that area, the submission that was in the attachments to the staff report shows that he was looking at taking the area basically right over to the west edge, and now we're well aware that that's hazard land, it wouldn't work. And the other thing is that with the number of lots too, the hydrogeological study is normally what we asked for, to see if they need to have lots like we had to in Cortland of 1.5 acres, or if 1 acre will work, or if something a bit smaller than that will work. But that hydrogeological study will prove that. So if they're not wanting to do that, then the 1 acre is what works. So in this situation then, the boundary of the hamlet does include some hazard land, which was not included in the calculations for the developable land. There is a lot of land to the northeast and to the southeast east of this hamlet that's not been developed yet, that's available for use as hamlet development. So there's quite a bit of potential within the Villanova hamlet. So as to whether we can change the boundaries or not, I think Matt's going to answer that question in a little more detail if he could. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Through Mr. Chair, the issue with change of boundary or adjustment is you're taking a designation off of one area and placing it on another. So there's in most cases, it's another property owner that's involved, and so removing that designation of potential development from that property owner. So that's a concern. And it's also a concern is what is the logical development pattern in the hamlet, whether that change would allow for it or not. Yeah. Access is also an issue.
Councilor Brunton, you have some questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at, I found the paper one to be a little difficult to follow, but I'm looking at the Google Earth picture here, and I can see the hazard land, and there's actually, it looks like an irrigation pond on Thompson Road on that side. But on the corner there where you look, is that a drain kind of coming around the corner also? That would cut through the red area he shows on his plan. You see the corner lot on Thompson Road in Villanova? What is that area that kind of circumvents and goes right out, back out to, comes from Thompson over to Villanova? Is that some kind of a swale or a drainage area?
Through the chair, I believe that area between the former gas station and store and that lot on the corner,
Yeah.
it looks like a depression or a swale, but no, it's not a drain. I did ask that question before of someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Sonnenberg.
Question of the drainage or the swale that we're talking about, that is a major ditch. In a heavy rain, that whole area coming off of Thompson and then exiting across Villanova is a major wet area. So I don't know about developing lots in either spot. However, I like the fact that it's squaring things up and it's kind of infilling the red hash marked area on Villanova Road. The bottom end is the old railroad location. And what he's proposing is squaring it off and filling in. You can see houses on the east side of Villanova Road. What would be wrong with having houses on the west side? However, like I said, that is a wet area. I don't know if I'd be building houses in that portion of the red hash marked area close to the railroad. It is a major ditch, so I don't know what to say here. I'm in favor of filling in and squaring up, but it is a poor area for drainage. So maybe the ditch could go between two houses. I don't know. I haven't looked at it that close. Just some comments.
Councilor Black, then Councilor Alderman.
Mr. Chairman, to staff, what would happen if we went ahead and changed the boundary or expanded the boundary of a hamlet? Who would be coming after us?
To Mr. Chair, this plan will be, once council is satisfied with it, will be sent to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and they will review it, and that may or may not be an issue that they bring up. They will review the plan with respect to any changes to the plan with respect to conformity to the provincial policy statement. So it may be an issue that they will raise.
Councilor Alderman, then Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is a pretty simple one, and staff did touch on this, or Matt, I forget which, a moment ago, and I should have asked the deputation this question. But the area that they were proposing could be taken out of the hamlet designation whether it's designated or zoned hazardous or not. Are both of these parcels owned by the same property owner? And I'm not sure if staff know the answer, Mr. Chair, but I do see the deputation nodding his agreement. So I
Go ahead.
staff concur?
Just hang on a second, yes. Go
Through the
ahead.
chair, both areas, just lost my map here. Both the blue areas and the red areas, and even the vacant area that's within, off the Villanova Road and goes up to Thompson and wraps around that lot on the end, that's all one property. So it goes right down to the railroad track, which just comes in on the lower right side of your paper, right up to Thompson Road is all one ownership.
Councilor Brunton?
I wasn't clear on that. You say, are they two different owners or one complete owner for the blue and the red? One owner? Okay, sorry, I didn't pick up on that. Thank you.
I have one question, and the question is this. We talk about hamlets, but there are some people who are from that area who want to be in that particular hamlet. So theoretically, is that a possibility, I guess? That's the problem. It's great to say we have a lot of space in our hamlets, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people want to go there. So how do we deal with that, I guess?
Through the chair, I wish that you could see the map I happen to be looking at, which shows much larger areas than this on the east side, both north and south of Thompson Road East. They're probably twice and 4 or 5 times the size of this area that are within the hamlet designated and available for building in Villanova.
Okay, but is there a road required, or is there road access on Thompson or for Villanova as well?
There is a road access that's been left off of the Villanova Road North, and they'd have to put it through down to Thompson Road East. Our calculations, our consultant is just telling me with counting the road out of there, would be there's potential for 21 lots just in that area.
Okay, thank you. Any further? Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking with, listening to the consultant talk, there was a need for the housing or for lot development, and you said you did a few tests basically on that. So when I look at some numbers here, you said 800 units in hamlets over 20 years. That's correct?
That was the alternative projection that I came up with, yes.
And we have 43 hamlets, so roughly one house per hamlet per year is what it boils down to, roughly?
Lots already there, so it's got to be back here then. Won't work.
It's over a 20-year period, so yeah, it's 40 units a year, and one per, if you do the math, it's about one per hamlet.
Okay, so when I look at this map here and I see the boundary for the hamlet, say the northeast corner, there's all that vacant land. Okay, now I'm assuming you took that into account, and so each acre there is set aside for a potential building lot?
When I did the calculations, I also assumed that some of the land would be used for a road, so I also took that into account. So it's, the total that I had for Villanova was 21 lots for the entire hamlet. That would include the northeast corner, the southeast corner, and the west side as well. And taking into account the hazard lands, the ability to have access to the sites. So all of that was taken into account. And I came up with 21 lots of about 1 acre in size, taking into account the potential for, or the need for roads for some of those areas.
Okay, so I guess one of the problems that I have with that is that the person who owns the northeast corner, what if they're not selling for lots? Then you limit an area where a person in the southwest corner is okay with lots. Maybe this person in the northeast corner owns that farm over there and doesn't want neighbors. You could zone his property, but in a million years, he's never going to sell it. So I'm not sure how you can justify that aspect of it unless you actually ask the owner. Because that's what I feel is happening to our hamlets right now is that, okay, we might have basically drawn a box around a piece of land, but nobody's interested in selling that land. It could be in a different area that's on the outskirts of the hamlet.
Mr. Chair, the provincial policy statement is based on land and land supply. Different owners, you're right, have different motivations in terms of their properties. Some want to develop, some may want to wait later for maybe they think the price will go up and they'll wait for a later date, or they're interested in continuing to farming their land, and that's their long-term objective. But we have to go by the land supply and what's actually designated, and not by the motivations of the property owner.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is that in the northeast or the northeast corner, you have this huge land supply that limits Villanova's growth, but it's probably never going to grow. And the provincial policy says you can't take land out of agricultural supply. That is clearly a field. And if the bottom corner of the field is junky and wet and you have a way to deal with the water, it's probably your better spot. But even if you look in the northwest corner, the line doesn't go by those lots. So now you have a sliver of a piece that's basically, I'm not sure that it's good for anything because you wouldn't have a lot on there behind those two fields. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me by looking at the picture like this. You tie up a whole bunch of land that's never going to be developed and you say we have an abundance of developable land. And if that's done to all 43 hamlets, it's going to be hard to get any growth happening.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the land on the northwest, that sliver of land, that I don't think that was counted in the potential supply. Its access would be difficult, and so that kind of situation, and that does occur in other hamlets as well, and that was taken into account.
Okay, Councillor Sonnenberg.
I can give you a brief history on Villanova. The large portion of land to the northeast, in behind the houses on Villanova Road, right there, two owners of that property once tried to develop that. They tried to turn it into a subdivision. The whole village put up such a hue and cry that they just gave up. Twice it was attempted and twice it was defeated. Villanova can be developed along the roads, like the Villanova Road or the Thompson Road, but they will never accept streets and cul-de-sacs and that sort of thing onto the farmland. That's been their history. So I would be in favor of doing what has been proposed tonight and moving some undevelopable land to an area that is developable along the Villanova Road between the village and the railroad track as proposed.
Making that a motion?
I will make that a motion.
Comments from anyone? Did you get that? Sorry? It's not what Sam is reporting. Basically, that we do the changes that I lost my. Yeah, I realize I've got it. Basically, what we want to do is change this to there. Just give us a few minutes to get it together, and we'll go from there and see what happens. Councillor Black.
The motion, through you to staff, would that land still be contained within the hamlet designation? Or are we going outside of the boundary?
Well, we can do two things. We can call it a land swap, just like we have with lots. So I think I heard somebody say they're not sure that we'll even look at it. Go ahead. Somebody got something to say. Okay, let's try what you got. We'll go from there, if it suits
I'm
Councilor Sonnenberg.
still waiting for an answer to my
Okay.
question. Do you have an
Wait for
answer,
that.
staff, or?
It wasn't quite clear. Our discussion was what is the land area that is to be taken out, and the other issue is in terms of how we're going to redesignate the lands if council wishes to do this. If we're putting sort of a hole in the hamlet boundary, because the hamlet actually extends further west from this site. So actually how we would do it. But I think the bottom line is if it's land for land that's being exchanged and we're not increasing the hamlet boundary, then that's something I think we can take forward to the ministry when if they question this issue.
I think one of the things you need to look at, and maybe you have one of those maps, maybe you don't, but, sorry, can I borrow that back? We're talking about 45.5 square meters, I guess, and we're going to 537.85 meters on the other side, so we're actually making it smaller.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, based on what staff has said, I could support the motion that's on the floor, because what they're saying is this is sort of like a lot swap. It's still within the hamlet boundary, and if it is, then fine.
Any other? Nobody? Okay, let's read the motion and see what we've got, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you. Through the chair, moved by Councillor Sonnenberg that the boundary of the hamlet of Villanova be reduced by 12,045.5 square meters along Thompson Road East and expanded by 7,537.85 square meters along Villanova Road.
All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, moving on to Dave Rowe. Welcome. You have 10 minutes like everybody else, but it seems to take a lot more than 10 minutes.
I'm here on behalf of 4 clients and myself.
Okay.
But I do talk fast, so.
You have 10 minutes. I have to tell everybody the same thing.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get going.
I haven't started yet, so you're okay.
Okay. The first proposal, which is in actually the staff report, I believe, Mary, that is for John and Lillian Wiggers in Forestville. And want to make sure, and it was part of the staff report that I got off online. And I want to make sure people have gotten the correct. It's under 1A, under probably my delegation section in your agenda. Make sure everybody found it. Okay. And Mary, do you know what page that would be? Okay, that's good. Because I didn't download your whole agenda. It was
39,
size of a telephone book. What was being proposed here, this is in the hamlet of Forestville, on the east side of the West Quarter Line Road. What is being proposed would be to increase the depth of the hamlet designation, ranging from going back a total depth from the road going back roughly 250 feet. The intent is, there is one vacant lot there. We undertook and got hydrogeological report done. The consultant said that that lot, in fact, was large enough to sustain a septic system without any nitrate level issues or problems with the adjacent property owners. But we also wanted to increase the depth of all of the neighboring lots as you go further south on the quarter line road. The lots are very small. You go in their backyards, they've encroached over onto the Wiggers property. In fact, some of them have sheds, they have septic systems on their neighbor's property. So what we proposed was to be able to extend all of those existing lots that are built on so that they would be large enough to accommodate their septic systems and move them from roughly probably a quarter of an acre or less, some of them, up to almost an acre. Now, Mr. Wiggers has talked to all of those neighbors, and they're all very definitely interested in being able to have a severance to extend the depth of their lots and, and basically have ownership of what they've been, in fact, using for some time. I brought this to planning staff, and planning staff have agreed, and I found it in their report, to support this particular hamlet boundary expansion, even though, yes, it is expanding a hamlet boundary, but we're not creating new lots. We're just allowing the existing lots to be larger and more sustainable from a septic tank perspective. So based on that, I was quite pleased to see that staff did agree with me. That is the Wiggers application, and what it will do, in fact, is it will allow larger lots that can be properly accommodate a well and a septic system on the property. The next request, and this is up in Boston, if Mary wants to bring the screen up to Boston, and it's in the name of Jerry and Lucy Dutch. I think I pronounced it right, hopefully. And what it is, it's on the Angling Road, and Mary, if you could bring that up, and you'll see attached is my sketch. And if it's on the south end of the Angling Road, and yeah, that helps. And Mary, maybe just expand it a little bit more. And if you just go a little bit further north than that. Yeah, let Mary get it. She knows what area I'm talking about. Yeah, that's the property. This was part of a plan of subdivision done a number of years ago, and we did have one remnant lot, and maybe if Mary can show you where it is. Actually, it's where the pointer is there. Part of the lot, the front part that's adjacent to Angling Road, is actually within the designated hamlet. The rear portion is considered to be in the agricultural area. Now, the total lot size of this parcel is 3.8 acres, so that's a huge lot. So what we did is we did a hydrogeological report. What the consultant came up with, that in this area a minimum of 1.2 acres is required to accommodate a traditional tile bed system. However, the area designated within the hamlet is roughly that 1.2 acres. That leaves 2.6 acres vacant, and basically if you build a house there, you wind up with a large area in behind. What my client would like to do is to divide it in the lot into two parcels, extend the hamlet boundary to take in that triangular parcel, as you can see up there, or shown on my sketch. Put one house on the 1.2 acres and then put a second house on 2.6 acres. Now, what this does is it requires the hamlet boundary to be expanded. Staff looked at it and said, well, you're creating an extra lot, and we have previous speaker dealt with. We know we have this supply of land within hamlets that can accommodate far more future growth and based on that, we shouldn't be touching any of the hamlet boundaries. Well, when you start actually looking at the hamlet boundaries, and I got to commend a consultant because all of us planners have gone through and done hamlet studies here in Norfolk. We do have a lot of hamlet areas that the owner of the farmland doesn't want to develop it. You go to, I think a great example is Langton. There's huge areas designated as being within the hamlet of Langton. Langton has some problems, though. It has high nitrate levels. You'd probably wind up with 2 and 3 acre lots. You'd have to put in streets and develop it like that. And the reality is nobody wants to do it. It would be too costly because the lots are too big. However, those large blocks of land are being counted into the supply side. The reality is they're not going to be developed. I had hoped when the 5-year review was being done that we would get an opportunity to look at the hamlets and say, okay, for Langton, does this in fact make sense? You've got 30 acres designated for future residential development. You got no municipal water, no municipal sewers in Langton. You got high nitrate levels, and you got the provincial policy statement saying we shouldn't be building subdivisions all on private services. Yet there we sit with acres and acres of land that probably shouldn't be developed. What you get, just as comments were made earlier, you get development along the existing roads, and that's where it makes sense, because the days of putting in streets, putting houses all on private services, except for rounding out hamlet areas, that isn't going to happen.
You actually have 2 minutes left.
Well, I've only had this application. I've got 4 more. And I thought this was, in fact, my opportunity to come to council to speak to your 5-year review.
Unfortunately, this is a deputation, and what we allow is 10 minutes, so I have no idea what to deal with it. It'll be up to council if they would give you more time.
Either that or I have to come back
next week,
and then the following week,
so.
and then the following week.
No.
What I'd like to do is just go through the 4 areas that I have clients who want some consideration for their hamlet, a chance to speak to council on that. And then I have one which I'm bringing forward myself personally, dealing with your severance policy. I've talked to staff and I've talked to some councillors, and I think that my comments will be very valuable. 42 years of doing this, I have picked up a few ideas along the way.
So what can we do? Can Dave come back next week, or are we going to deal with it tonight, or how are we going to deal with it? I cannot change your 10 minutes.
And I agree. Yeah.
Hang on, Councillor Black.
This isn't a planning public meeting, and do we not have another opportunity for a planning public meeting for Mr. Rowe to come back, and then he has unlimited time under those circumstances?
I would suggest that that's probably the best thing to do, but I will ask staff when is the next time that somebody can put something, I guess, come forward and try and make some changes.
So the current plan is taking direction tonight and then making any changes in order to come back to you on the 20th to get approval in principle so that we could send it to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for their 90-day review. The public meeting and the open house wouldn't be till later in the fall after we have the comments from the ministry. So it's comments tonight, next week possibly at council, but I leave that up to you and up to council to decide.
Well, that's not me. It's going to have to be council to do that, so. Councillor Columbus.
Well, I think what Mr. Rowe is providing us is very important information. And can we vote to waive the procedure rules? To allow him more than 10 minutes? Because he's representing many different clients. He probably should have had each one of them put their name forward as a deputation, and then he would be their consultant. But is that possible to the clerk's office?
Clerk?
Through the chair, as Councillor Columbus has suggested, I can draft up a motion that the procedural bylaw be waived to allow the deputation longer than the 10 minutes.
I would put that motion on the floor.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that we extend the time. All those in favor, sorry? Go ahead.
I could be done in 20 minutes maximum.
Councillor Height.
Mr. Chair, I like the idea that we go over and look at these hamlets again. I'm not very happy with some of the stuff that I see in here, and if the plan is going forward on June 20th to municipal affairs, it won't go with my approval, I'll tell you that right now. But I found it very useful to sit down with council and hear, like, for example, Councillor Sonnenberg say, oh, there's a whole pile of land in the northeast corner, and all of a sudden we see a whole bunch of land that's probably never going to be developed. Right? There's 43 hamlets. I'm not in a big hurry to jam this official plan through. I'd rather do it right and do it right the first time. I know I have some issues with the hamlets in my area moving forward, and I don't see where it would kill us to take our time and do it properly.
So you're suggesting we go back to, I guess it won't be me, but it'll be the mayor who will have to deal with that. Councillor Wells.
Mr. Chair, I don't think I'll be supporting asking for extra time. It's taken us 13 years to finally make a decision. 10 minutes is 10 minutes. And the moment that you make an exception, you make an exception. It is not as if he cannot be here next week. And if we have to, I don't even mind starting a little early next week. However, let's stick to the policy that we have. 10 minutes, and that's it.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor, and we'll see where it goes. All those in favor? Those opposed? I guess you're coming back next week.
When I did phone the clerk's department, I sent them an email. I said these were my clients, so I'd be glad to come back next week, though.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry to bother because of that.
Okay.
Councillor Height.
Mr. Chair, am I able to move a motion where we have another meeting to review the hamlets through the official plan?
Okay, where do you want, and when do you want to do it?
And I would like it so that the public could come out and speak at that time as well, if that's
So
possible.
that'll have to be next week then, when I guess there will be some chance for people to come forward.
Or a special meeting?
Well, that's something that you will have to decide. Someone will have to decide. Planning staff will have to be here, so we may not be able to make it on the 20th. Councillor Black.
If we're going to do that,